The Seattle Mariners somehow managed to pull off a series win versus the Houston Astros. They probably shouldn't have, but they did. We're going to talk about this series and some of the things that went right and some of the things that went wrong for this team, including Ryan Bliss going on the injured list with a torn bicep. We're going to talk about how the Mariners could potentially go through and replace him over at second base, and we'll wrap it all up after Joe's Operation Overreaction. Don't forget about that. We're going to wrap it all up with the Texas Rangers series. Going to be a tough one for the Mariners. We'll see how they're going to do in that. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 181 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network. The Tyler, Mookie, Nolan, Game Day Mike, Zach, and Axton episode of the podcast. It was great to meet all of you guys at the game the other day. Thank you guys for anyone that's coming up and saying hi to us, by the way. It means a lot. And if you guys have been suffering through the Mariners season like we have just released our new Mariners Anonymous merch. There'll be a link in the description down below. We've been doing Mariners Anonymous after really bad Mariners losses where we just go live and just talk it out with the chat. Hi, chat. My name's Colton. I'm a Mariners addict. We've been doing that quite a bit because of how bad this team has been so far this year. Without further ado, I'm here with Joe. Hey, man.
Hi, Colton. I'm Joe, and I, too, am a Mariners addict.
Hi, Joe.
Yeah, this series against the Astros is certainly one to drag us back in after maybe wanting to get out. Game 1 was a roller coaster of emotions. The Gregory Santos staying in the game with Gabe Spire, got the ground ball that he needed. Dylan Moore just didn't field it cleanly. Jorge Polanco, the savior once again. A wild game that we were in attendance for, 3-0 on the year. Gilbert pitched well enough, just not deep enough because of some inefficient pitching or just maybe some missed calls or some long at-bats from the Astros. They made Hayden Wesneski look like the Cy Young GOAT. Future Cy Young winner Hayden Wesneski, by the way. I'm never saying a bad thing about any mediocre starting pitcher ever again that's pitching against the Seattle Mariners. It's a tale as old as time. It happens every single time.
Yeah, you did say in the last podcast, he's the worst pitcher we've faced, other than Osvaldo Bido.
Well, I mean, in fairness to Osvaldo Bido, he also kind of carved up the Mariners. But regardless, a Game 1 win where we knew that was the game that they had to win because of the pitching advantage that ultimately didn't end up mattering a ton. Ryan Bliss hitting his first homer in that game, which was very, very exciting. Just got over the outfield fence there. A Game 1 win going into Game 2 with Framber and Luis Castillo, the Rock, on the bump. Anything you want to touch on from Game 1?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of fun. We were at the game, enjoyed it quite a bit. It was, like you mentioned, a roller coaster of emotions. We were up there on the platform, on the stairwell, and when Dylan Moore missed that baseball, I think that I went nonverbal at the function there for a little bit.
Yeah,
I had nothing to say. I was in awe. And then he leads off the next inning with a walk, steals second base, and we go next. The Mariners were able to somehow pull that game out, but they were not able to do that in Game 2 with Luis Castillo. The Rock, he'll just call him The Rock.
Luis M. Castillo.
The Rock, that's right, it's an M.
Yeah.
The Rock was on the mound. Again, not very efficient with his pitch count, especially there was one inning that really got to him. I think he threw like 30 pitches in the 4th or the 5th or something like that. The Mariners, obviously, they were up 1-0 for quite some time until, once again, Dylan Moore misses a frickin' baseball, and the Astros scored their first run.
So, who got on? Was it Paredes? Or because Cam Smith hit the triple, right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't able to watch it. I was working, unfortunately, but I did catch the tail end of the game, which was the one that ended up really fully mattering, I guess. But
I lied. The Mariners were not up 1-0. It was tied 0-0. My bad.
So they got the run back in the 7th because Framber carved, and then as soon as they go to the bullpen is where the Mariners take flight, apparently, against Taylor Scott. But if you can call one run in a game taking flight, I don't really know if we can. It was not a good game offensively for anybody on the team. They went 1 for 19 with runners in scoring position. They struck out 19 times. It was an abysmal game, and especially with how many opportunities they had in extra innings. Like, the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Dylan Moore, there's just so many moments where then he redeems himself with like a glorious double play, right, where it's like, how in the hell did he just do that? but then they just don't capitalize on holding the Astros scoreless through several innings of the Manfred man after the Mariners themselves are not capitalizing on it. It's just they got Julio to third with one out and just can't do anything with it. That's the winning run that would have won you the series on game 2, potential to go for a sweep in the third game. A game that we always felt was the one that you probably guaranteed are to lose with Framber on the bump, because Framber's pretty darn good. Not to say that Castillo can't go toe-to-toe with him. It's just, you looked at the kind of framework of this series, game 2 felt like one that you were always going to lose, and it was a game that was winnable that the Mariners ended up losing anyways.
Yeah, I think that what they did it really felt like that Yankees Mariners game. I thought, when game of the year, blah blah, Luis Torrens comes in, the first run is the only run sort of deal from Aaron Goldsmith, and it just didn't happen. Like, they had so many opportunities, and there were some interesting pitching choices. Going to Carlos Vargas in the 9th inning, leaving Andres Munoz in your bullpen.
Hey, we won the Geno trade because of that.
That's right.
People are calling it the Carlos Vargas trade now.
They are,
because of that inning.
That is true. Why not the Sebi Zavala trade?
Because he's dead. Not actually.
What? Yeah. So interesting moves made there. That game hurt, man. I mean, if you guys were at the stream, I was just very monotone. I don't want to
dead
be
inside.
here. And to your guys' credit, I mean, you guys came through with the support that after that game, and brought the spirits up a little bit. But yeah, that game sucked. And then going into game 3, a lot more of suck when it's Hunter Brown versus Luis F. Castillo, a game that you truly were prepared to lose no matter what. And Castillo gives up 4 runs in 4 innings. And the Mariners offense once again cannot hit.
It was just nothing for 6-7 innings for the Mariners offense. Hunter Brown pitched very well in this game. 6 innings, 2 hits, only 3 strikeouts, but limiting hard contact throughout, except for, Luke Raley scalded a ball 114. The Astros defense in the infield made a couple great plays in this one, admittedly, but that doesn't matter if they can't close out the game, right? The bullpen pieced it together after Luis Castillo exited the game. Bizardo, another clean inning. Colin Snyder, a very clean inning. Casey Lawrence went 3 innings. I think did more than his job should have been asked for. Yes, he does have 4 hits, 2 earned to his line, but I just don't think that he should have been out there for the final inning no matter what. They should have gone to someone else in that top of the 9th, because it was a 1-run game at that point. Prior to the bottom of the 8th inning, it was 5-0. But with 2 outs, Randy Arozarena comes up clutch with a grand salami. Grandy Arozarena. A big boost to the Mariners. Morale, vibes, anything in general. Showing that there is still life within the team. Somehow, someway, after looking abysmal all day, it just takes one swing to really put themselves back in it. Astros do score in the top of the 9th. It's a 2-run game. And the Julio clutch truthers finally can kind of come out of the woodwork and say that, he's not that bad in the clutch. But listen, when he hit that ball down the line, I was over the moon. That's a tie ball game. It's not a walk-off win for Julio. It's a tie ball game it was so good to see him hit that ball the way that he did, because he had an at-bat in the first game against Brian Abreu where he saw one good pitch to hit pretty much, and it was a slider that he yanked foul. I think he saw at least 3 good pitches to hit in that at-bat.
Yeah.
And he missed on the first 2. But then he did finally get that last one, punch it out to right field. A great hit. The inning rally started off by Donovan Solano and Miles Mastrobuoni. Weird shenanigans. We don't really fully need to get into it. But a walk-off walk from Randy Arozarena. I had no faith in him taking ball 4 in that at bat after he swung it strike 2, 98, about a foot off the plate, where he just kind of waved at it. I had no faith that he was walking in that. I thought he was going to either get a hit, or he was going to strike out.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun way to win that game, because again, you win the series versus the Astros here, and Randy was the star. The reason that you traded for him was what he did for you today. And I think because of that, you have to feel good about where this team is going into this off day starting on Thursday. But Joe, there was unfortunately in game 2 an injury that we didn't mention there when we were going through it that is going to affect this team for a little while.
Yeah, Ryan Bliss played through like the entire game because the at bat the swing happened in his first at bat of the game, right? So it was very early on in the game. A torn bicep, just felt some discomfort. I mean, he hit a double with a torn bicep. He made an incredible diving stop with a ball bouncing off the bag to preserve a run in the ninth, right?
Mm-hmm.
A warrior. But unfortunately, he does find himself on the 10-day injured list. Leo Rivas called up in his place for the final game and temporarily going forward. How long does a torn bicep take to recover?
Depends on how torn it is.
Exactly. We don't fully know yet. This could, similar to Victor, be season ending.
Yeah.
At its worst. I think that's, duh. Like most injuries, season ending is about as worse as it gets, the worst that it gets. But I would hope if they tended to it quickly. It was only one day. Yes, he did play basically an entire game on it. It could be longer than we would have preferred if they had just yanked him earlier in the game, but I really don't. We don't have a full timeline yet. I don't think there's a timetable on Bliss how long he will be out. If I had to guess, I mean Victor's out at least until around the All-Star break, right?
I think probably even after that. Like, yeah.
I would assume that may be Bliss's earliest as well, is around the All-Star break. So 2 months without the two speed demons pretty much on the roster. How do the Mariners replace him? Well, in the interim, it's Miles Mastrobuoni and Leo Rivas, I would say, are the main guys that you're going to look at the Mariners turn to. But if there are other options out there, you can imagine what they'll be is if Cole Young is hitting well down in AAA.
Yeah, I think that the hard part is Cole Young is not hitting well right now. But there's a real possibility that at some point in the future you have Cole Young up, you might have Tyler Locklear up, even Ben Williamson, depending on what happens with Jorge Polanco moving forward. You could consider moving Polanco back to second base. Like, that's an option. I'm assuming they don't feel comfortable with that, seeing as how they're afraid to let him hit left on left, and instead of this having them switch to the right side. So I think that Aaron Goldsmith put it really well during this game. He said, if you would have told me during the offseason that on April 9th, this early in the season, Donovan Solano's at first base, Miles Mastrobuoni's at second base, Dylan Moore is playing third, Luis F. Castillo is pitching, like, you would have just assumed that the season is off to a disastrous start, and it kind of is.
Yeah, 5-8's not necessarily stellar,
right?
But
I mean, when I was looking earlier at like some of the last for the Mariners, how they've started out the past couple of years, and 11 and 15 was how they started in either 23 or 22 in April.
Okay.
So do with that as you will. But yeah, Ryan Bliss, there's really nobody else to call up other than Leo Rivas. I mean, you could consider going out and making a trade, but I don't know who's available at this juncture. Like, I just think you don't have much of a choice other than just ride it out. It's going to be Dylan Moore every day, probably over there. And then maybe Solano's in every single day at third base.
Gross.
Like, or Mastrobuoni is in, somewhere. Luke Raley, clearly they're going to roll with the whole let's let Luke face lefties and start him every single day as the right fielder. Joe, you do have someone down in AAA that could make some sense.
Yeah, a little bit of sense. I mean, Samad Taylor is a potential that could find his way onto the major league roster at some point if Rivas isn't hitting. He's currently hitting 304 with a 1. OPS down in Tacoma. I feel like, has he played? He plays second base, like second base and outfield. Like that's his bread and butter. And I think if Rivas doesn't hit, and if he struggles, I imagine that they would turn to Samad Taylor as an option there. It could even be if Canzone's not hitting, send him back down. You call up Samad Taylor, you go with Raley in the outfield, and then you have like Mastrobuoni and Dylan Moore kind of be a bit more of like a platoon outfield spot if Raley's playing first base or however it works. Like, there's so many different options that they can go with because they have a lot of guys that have versatility on this roster. It's just they're only really worthwhile if they can produce. And that's the hard part, is if they're not necessarily guys that have produced in the past. Samad Taylor is a spark plug. He could be. I mean, we saw the Brewers series last year lay down a bunt and really just make stuff happen. Like, he is, to me, what Ryan Bliss can do as a speed first player that can play decent defense and maybe run into a ball here and there. but you're not going to get the bulk of his value from offensive production. You're likely looking for it as defense and speed as the main two things. Leo Rivas, he's not necessarily fast. He's
Right.
more so of a glove first guy, but he provides you more versatility in offense because he is a switch hitter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, and they maybe just prefer Rivas over Samad Taylor. I mean, obviously he was the one that got called up. Like, there's a reason why they prefer him. It fits the roster better at this point, maybe. But Taylor would be like, if I had to, Taylor comes up before Cole Young.
Yeah,
I think.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to let Cole Young come up unless he's hitting 400. Like, that's just not what they're going to do. And Rivas, I think, has not a ton of leash, but I don't expect him to get sent down in 2 weeks. Like, I would expect him to, they give him 2 weeks of playing time. If he is the worst hitter on the planet, then yes, Samad Taylor probably comes up at that point.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, it's going to be so hard because I don't know how much run a lot of these guys are going to get at certain positions. Again, you could even mix it up even more and send, again, Solano over there to third base, which isn't going to be pretty. But, I mean, maybe they do just want to get him more at-bats or something like that. Solano and Masterboni at third. You bring up Tyler Locklear to be the right-handed platoon with Rowdy over there at first. Not that Rowdy's done anything either, but it's like, there's a lot of options they could do. They could just roll with Masterboni. He had, again, a good game in Game 3 versus the Houston Astros, or they could go out and make a trade. Joe and I talked about it a little bit during the stream, that it just feels like Ryan Mountcastle is a guy the Mariners could go out and get at some point this offseason or this season before the trade deadline. I don't know what it's going to cost. I don't even know if he's having a good year, but you'd have him the rest of this year, and then you would have him next year as well, I believe, or maybe it's a player option. So Mountcastle's a guy. I was talking about the outfield as well. I wanted to say that, like, Andrew Benintendi was going to be a guy you could maybe go out and get from the White Sox, and to have them maybe pay down some contract, and you trade them some prospects or what have you. You get him for a couple of years, but he's making a lot of money. So, and he just went on the injured list. So Luis Robert, another option there. I don't know. I just don't know if a trade this early in the season is feasible.
So Mountcastle on the season has a 125 WRC plus. He is currently hitting 316, 350, 421. So he'd be your best hitter.
Yeah, it would be.
Like, maybe not better than Polo, but, like, you know, small sample size regardless. He is making $6 million in arbitration. He will be a free agent next year. So you'd have him again. So he'd probably make like $9 million next year. Mm-hmm. It would be my guess. He does have options. So if he does the standard, I'm on the Mariners, I can't hit baseballs anymore, you can send him down.
Right.
There's roster versatility and flexibility there. Calling out trades right now for filling roster spots is hard because there's teams like the Braves who are in the cellar. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Mariners are in the cellar. What teams are likely wanting to make trades less than 15 games into the year? Not very many.
Probably 2 of them.
Yeah, right. There's only a handful, and we have seen. I mean, Quinn Prester got traded from the Red Sox to the Pirates, mm-hmm. I think, which is where Prester came from. I think.
Yeah, I think beforehand.
You're right. There's been some moves. Cody Bolton to the who got him for cash.
I don't know. Somebody. Doesn't matter.
Cody Bolton's no longer a Mariner, so the one less arm in the pile. But I don't know. Calling out trades this early is so difficult to figure out and navigate, like, who's really available. And even, like, MLB Network was talking about JD Martinez being an option because the Mariners are hitting so poorly. Talking about roster construction, JD Martinez is the last guy the Mariners could really use, because if they really need Polo to be the full-time DH because he can't play the field because his body is just not healthy enough to do it, signing a full-time DH doesn't make any sense because he's not going to go play right field. If he does,
man, we're down bad.
That would be... Not my Operation Overreaction, but if JD Martinez was signed to the Mariners to play a defensive position, that would be the worst defensive player to ever grace the Mariners uniform. Like, that would have ever put on a Mariners uniform.
Wow.
I would say.
I'm in. Yeah. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that trades are hard right now because, again, it's the White Sox and it's the Marlins. Those are the 2 teams that aren't going to be there at the end of the year. So, like, maybe they're looking to trade and maybe they'd be okay trading early. Luis Robert's off to a bad start. They're not going to trade him. When he's off to a bad start, they want him to rebuild some of that value, but he was bad last year. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I still think you'd be paying a premium on Luis Robert, and I don't think the White Sox are going to be willing to come down from that asking price because of his potential. Again, Benintendi just went on the injured list, so that's gone. I don't even know who's on the Marlins anymore. They traded everybody last year, so I don't think there's anybody to go get.
They have a lot of guys that are
on the precipice of making the major leagues.
Or just like guys that have a lot of club control. Otto
Hmm.
Lopez, Connor Norby, Xavier Edwards. Like there's a lot of is that his name? Yes.
Yes.
Xavier Isaac's the first baseman for the Rays. I got them confused. There's a lot of guys that would be very valuable to teams long term, but they're also valuable to the Marlins long term because they have so much club control.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it just makes it hard. And I think that maybe to say the Mariners need to go out there and make a trade like this is an overreaction. And speaking of overreactions, it's your turn, buddy, for Operation Overreaction. What is your overreaction for April 9th, 2025, after a walk-off win from the Mariners?
Walk-off win from the Mariners. This player played a role in the walk-off that it has to do with my Operation Overreaction. Went 2 for 4 today. Miles Mastroboni will stay on this roster for the full 162. He will be the 2-win Sam Haggerty, Dylan Moore hype guy that the fans fall in love with, that will be overmatched next year when he stays on the team. And that everyone's like, he needs more playing time. He needs more opportunities. He will be the guy that fans fall in love with. 1, because funny name. 2, he'll be on like a Cinderella run. He didn't look overmatched in the game, specifically today. There will be times where he will be, but that's just the nature of a baseball game. We're celebrating players that fail more than a third of the time, right? That's what baseball is. Miles Mastroboni, he stays on the roster for the full 162, puts up like a 2-ish win season based on not terrible offense, decent defense around multiple positions, and plus speed. I would have predicted, say in spring, I didn't even think he was going to make the team.
Yeah, true. We didn't mention him.
Let alone staying on the roster beyond April. Now he is going to be here on game 162, bases loaded, final at bat of the year. Mariners need a walk-off win or a hit to make the playoffs, and it's Mastroboni at the dish.
He strikes out and they miss by 1 game again.
Or he's the savior. I don't know. I just, it's an overreaction because he's never done this. He's never been that guy for any team. He's never been the consistent utility player for a full 162 and been valuable in that sense.
Yeah, and that's something that I think we talked about coming into the season, was like, he could be Dylan Moore. He could be, like that Sam Haggerty type, or he could be literally nothing. And he just needs to be off the team. And so far, I mean, he's looked good in his very, very limited opportunities that he's had. You think back to last year, someone that had very limited opportunities that eventually shined was Luke Raley. He started the season on the bench basically every single day.
Yeah.
And it was like, kind of like, what the hell are we doing with Luke Raley? In the end, he obviously carved out a role for himself and became a big part of this team. But it wasn't that way at the start of the year. Maybe Mastroboni could be on a similar run.
Let me just say this. The stats are not updated on Baseball Reference, but they're definitely higher than this right now. Mastroboni has a career .2 WAR. His WAR on the season, without his 2 for 4 performance today, is .1. He's doubled his career WAR with the Mariners in like 8 games. He's already matched his career WAR with the Mariners in the now 12 at-bats and 333 average with a 700-ish OPS. Miles Mastroboni is here, and he's ready to play 115 games?
God.
Something like that.
Yep.
Especially with Bliss being out, he's going to see a larger role. I think he gets more of the bulk than Rivas will.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, I mean, Bliss was playing against a lot of righties because the righty-lefty switch. Like, Bliss has hit righties better the majority of his minor league career. Yeah, Mastroboni's going to be there against right-handed pitching at second base.
Okay. I give it out of 10. This is like 10 being a huge, 10 being a huge overreaction.
Yeah, yeah.
0 being like, nah, whatever. I would give it like a 3. It's not that big of an overreaction.
It's pretty mild.
It's pretty mild, but like not because I think it's bad. I think that it's just attainable, which I think is good. I think that that's where we should be with some of these overreactions, because at this point we need a win here or there. And so, yeah, I think I give it a 3. I think that there's certainly a possibility that he somehow carves out a Jose Caballero, Sam Haggerty, Dylan Moore type role and goes on this run. And I'm down for that.
Well, we'll see him on Friday night against Jacob deGrom in the first game, because he's going to be the starting second baseman against right-handed pitching. I mean, I would be surprised if he's not. Let's just full stop. Maybe third base instead. And then Rivas playing second and Dylan Moore on the bench. But who knows? I don't know. But we won't know until Dan releases the lineup on Friday against DeGrom, against the Rangers, with Bryce Miller on the bump. A day off on Thursday, full reset. Bullpen will be fully available because we didn't use any going into the off day necessarily. And a pretty crucial game to win, but you win your first series against the Astros. Can the Mariners go back-to-back series wins, specifically against division rivals? That would be massive if they could pull it off. The division leading Rangers as it stands right now, 9-4, the best record in the American League. We need to gain some ground.
Yeah, for the Mariners, again, you're facing Jacob deGrom, right? He is one of the greatest pitchers of all time when he's healthy. And so far, this year, he's been healthy through a couple of starts. However, the Mariners do have his kryptonite. This player is batting 1,000 with a 5.000 OPS versus Jacob deGrom with 2 home runs in 2 at-bats. And that player is one Mitch Garver, everyone. Give it up. Give it up. Mitch Garver is, maybe he's in there DHing. I don't know. He's seen him well, apparently. Not a whole lot of at-bats for any of these guys. The most is Donovan Solano with 5. He's hitting 400 versus him. But again, Garver is the only one that has ever hit a homer off of him. Against Bryce Miller, again, the Rangers haven't seen him a whole lot because he's, young. Although, if you remember correctly, during his...
I mean, it was his debut, right?
Was it his debut that he got shelled? No, his debut was against the Athletics.
His debut was Woo, but then Miller, I think, got rocked in that.
Yeah. It was like his 3rd or 4th start.
Yeah.
And he got rocked the day after Woo also got rocked. So, the Rangers have hit him pretty well. Corey Seager is 2 for 5 with 2 home runs off of him. I'm sorry, better than 2 for 5. Marcus Semien is hitting 210 at-bats. So, like, hey,
he's washed.
Hold him down. Josh Young hit a home run versus him. Adolis Garcia has a home run as well. So, yeah, they've seen Bryce Miller pretty well, which is, like, kind of scary. But Bryce basically in his backyard, right, of New Braunfels, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that Bryce maybe has a bounce-back start here because his first 2 starts haven't been very good.
And he's going to need, not only for himself, I think the Mariners need him to get back on the horse. Just because they relied as the Mariners have for the last couple of years, they relied so heavily on their pitching. Both offenses have been pretty poor up until this point. The Mariners, as of recording, have the 3rd worst batting average in all of baseball. They're batting 200 as a team. The Rangers, they're not that much better. They're only batting 207. If we look at WRC+, the Mariners actually have a better WRC+ than the Rangers by some miracle. It's mainly because the Mariners have been walking more and... the Rangers have been slugging more, but the walks are really where they take the cake because the Mariners have a walk percentage of 11.5%, only striking out at 23.8, so pretty league average. Look at the Rangers. They're striking out 21% of the time, but only walking 6% of the time. So they're putting the ball in play a bit more. But WRC+, Rangers have an 82, the Mariners have a 94. So both offensives still below league average. The Rangers with a negative run differential still do have a winning record because they're pitching and their bullpen, they've been pitching a lot better and been more consistent, it seems. If there's ever a bounce back start or just a get right series for the pitching for the Mariners, specifically at home, it is against a Rangers offense that has not really got the ball rolling. And in game 2 with Kumar Rocker, who did not look good, has he pitched 1 or 2 starts so far?
He is 0-1 right now. So I don't know if that means
he's got an ERA over 7. So if he's done 3 starts.
That was 2024. 2 starts.
2 starts. 2 starts, only 8 innings pitched, a 7.88 ERA. The same thing can be said about him against the Mariners, right? A get-right start for any pitcher in T-Mobile against both offenses that are kind of putrid, but Miller needs one, and Rocker's opposite, Woo, in Game 2, he pitched well against the Giants, just his 1 ambush inning. If you can avoid that, I feel good about the Mariners' chances in Game 2.
Yeah, we mentioned Brian Woo and his Major League debut against the Texas Rangers, and it didn't go very well. And that kind of is reflected in the numbers here. A home run from Adolis Garcia, Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and Leody Taveras have all hit home runs against him. A lot of guys on this team are hitting well over 300 versus Brian Woo, albeit the most at-bats against him is just 9. So again, he's young. He's someone that has had his struggles with the Rangers probably in 2 or 3 games versus them, but he is pitching at T-Mobile Park, and that is definitely a better feeling than if they were down there in Texas again. So Bryce Miller and Brian Woo were going to pitch in this series, which we just talked about how they got shelled before, but With that being said, the Mariners versus Kumar Rocker have only played in one game versus him. I Bleav it was his major league debut.
Yep.
And Julio is 1 for 2.
That's it. I think so. Wasn't it last year when DeGrom came back from injury? Rocker made his debut, and then
Leiter made his debut.
Was it Leiter?
The next day, I think.
Okay, I don't know if I remember it being 3 like pitchers there. Oh, 6. So the Rangers are just like trying to pull out all the stops. Whether it was Leiter, but I for some reason feel like I would have been more scared if it was Nate Eovaldi.
Yeah.
Who was the final starter in Game 3 on Sunday against the Mariners opposite Logan Gilbert. Both of the aces of the staff. DeGrom, definitely an ace over Eovaldi, but obviously injury has prevented DeGrom from really fully amounting to that with the Rangers, I would say. And Eovaldi's pitched well this year. A 2.29 ERA. Logan's sitting at a 2.55?
Yep.
So both guys pitching very well to start the year. A Sunday day game. I feel like the vibes are always so weird on day games. Wednesday, weird day game, right? So who knows how Sunday will go, but both that pitching matchup, again, it feels like the coin toss, a 50-50 chance of both guys really dominating. And it could both go out there 7 innings, strike out double digits, and then we go to the pens and see who wins that battle. But I like the Mariners' chances, even though they haven't shown me anything worthwhile, to potentially win back-to-back series.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I think that you would like to win the first 2 starts because beating Eovaldi is going to be tough. He's had a great season. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball over the past couple of years when he's healthy. And you have Logan on the mound in that start, so maybe you feel a little bit better about that. I think this is probably the closest pitching matchup between the two. Game 1 probably goes to DeGrom. He's just the better pitcher when he's healthy.
Yep.
Game 2 probably goes to Brian Wu over Kumar Rocker. And then Game 3, like you said, a coin toss. Versus Nathan Eovaldi, the guy with the most ABs versus him is Randy Arozarena, because obviously Eovaldi was with the Red Sox back in the day. Randy's hitting 136 against him. A couple of home runs against Eovaldi, though. J.P. Crawford's hit one, Julio's hit one, and one Ryan Tellez has hit a home run versus Nathan Eovaldi, so maybe that's a good sign of things to come. Maybe Rowdy can get into one finally. I don't know if you saw it, but I thought he hit one today.
Rowdy?
Yeah, he flew one to right field. I was like, oh my God, it's finally getting out. The rest of the way, though, against Logan Gilbert, the Rangers have seen him a lot.
Yeah.
None, like, Adolis Garcia has 2 home runs in 34 ABs versus him, but he's hitting 176. Marcus Semien has a homer versus him, and Leody Taveras has 2. So do with that as you will, but none of them are hitting particularly well other than those home runs. And so with Logan, it has always felt like it's like that 1 or 2 like innings that really become a problem for him. Hopefully he's able to avoid that, because this offense, it's a good offense in my opinion. It's just a lot of guys didn't click last year, and I think that going into this season they're still not clicking in 2025, which is surprising to me, but I still do think that the Rangers are the team to beat in the American League West.
They do. Mariners do catch a break. Langford on the injured list. True. So that's a big break for the Mariners in the sense that you don't have to face him, because he feels not like an heir to the throne for torturing the Mariners within the American League West, but I could see him maybe being like a Mike Trout-esque player against the Mariners. Not that he'll necessarily reach those heights of Mike Trout as an overall player, but as torturing the Mariners go, I feel like Langford has maybe a seat at the table. I'll be curious to see what the bullpen looks like for both sides. Chris Martin and Robert Garcia, I Bleav, for the Rangers, the 2 main guys at the back end for them. Whether the Mariners bring back Troy Taylor now or if they wait to go on the road with him, that's something to look out for. If Casey Lawrence is still with the team beyond the off day, because I feel like they can go 1 short in the rotation and add an extra arm in the pen in that sense. Whether it's getting rid of Lawrence or getting rid of Luis F. Castillo, there's a couple different options they can go with. If Taylor's ready, I would like to see a move happen, though, because you're missing another swing man, another bridge to an 8th inning or a 9th inning. Yes, Thornton, he's looked pretty good. Gabe Spire has looked very good. And then you have Munoz, who obviously he's looked very good. It's just outside of those 3, you're still a little shaky with Santos. Vargas, how much longer will he keep riding the devil magic? Will Bizardo be able to replicate some of the success that he's had in the early innings, outside of against the Giants? Will he be able to replicate that later in the games? It's tough to say. I feel like Troy Taylor adding him back to the pen gives you an extra layer of, I mean, it's just velocity. It's stuff. It's stuff that makes batters look silly. Versus other guys in the pen right now, I'm not trusting it.
Yeah.
So if Taylor's back, you'll know probably tomorrow, I would guess, or maybe they just do it on Friday.
I would assume it maybe be Friday before the game.
Yeah,
but
some sort of roster move is made. My heart, or I guess where I would go is they send down Luis F. Castillo and then call up Logan Evans to make that start against the Reds. That would be going forward, looking a little bit further ahead. But if it is Casey Lawrence, I would also not be surprised.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of moves that still need to be made for the Mariners, but I just think that if they're going to go out there and make some sort of move, like bringing up Troy Taylor or something like that, it's gonna have to be Casey Lawrence. They've talked about how they don't want to get guys in some weird rhythm where they skip a fifth starter in Luis F. Castillo. But again, how many more times can you run him out there? They won today, which is good, but
I mean, he walked 5.
Yeah,
and he wasn't sharp.
He was bad. Like you have to go out there and get somebody like Spencer Turnbull or bring up, and it doesn't actually, no, you can't even go get somebody right now because you'd have to build them up. And so no, you can't do that. It has to be somebody that's in the org or a trade. And Logan Evans is a guy who's just like, okay, what's the point? Like he's just sitting down there. Maybe the off day lets them reset the days he pitched compared to when Castillo pitched. I'm not really sure. But nonetheless, I do think that there is a chance the Mariners could be bringing up Logan Evans sooner rather than later, maybe within the next 6 days, to start in Luis F. Castillo's spot. We'll just have to wait and see on that. We appreciate you guys watching episode 181 of the Hit It Here podcast. Fun day today, and go Mariners.